Hi, listeners. We want to tell you about a podcast we're really digging. It's called Christopher Kimball's Milk Street Radio. Every week, they travel the world to find the most fascinating stories about food, including children who harvest cod tongues after school in Norway and a detective who tracks down food thieves. And on Milk Street Radio, you can always find the unexpected. The comedian who ranks apples using an elaborate 100-point system, the secret history of grocery stores, and how to eat your way through Italy. They also interview the most beloved names in food like Jacques Pepin, Sola El-Waylly, Jose Andres, Jet Tila, Ina Garten, Nigella Lawson, and Padma Lakshmi. Plus, co-hosts Christopher Kimball and Sarah Moulton do live calls with listeners and answer their questions about ingredients, techniques, and culinary mysteries. Like, why roasting a leg of lamb made one caller's oven explode? Ever wonder why your bread won't rise or your souffle falls flat? Chris and Sarah have the answers. You'll also hear from a rotating cast of contributors, including Kenji Lopez-Alt, Cheryl Day, Dan Pashman from The Sporkful, and Alex Ainuz, a French guy cooking from YouTube. Take a listen at 177milkstreet.com/radio or just search your podcast app for Milk Street Radio. You're listening to Heritage Radio Network.
HRN is food radio supported by you. Learn more at heritageradionetwork.org.
Westholme is working with the land to create nature-led Australian Wagyu. Westholme believes that when nature leads, flavor follows. Learn more at westholme.com.
I'm Allison Kane, and welcome to In the Sauce, a podcast about building consumer brands from the ground up. I love doing this show because I get to interview everyone from production gurus to marketing and social media mavens, anyone who can guide me on this crazy journey. This is the story of building Haven's Kitchen sauces, but it's also the story of every growing brand because we're all in the sauce. Today, I'm talking with Yasamin and Sheila Sajadi, founders of Maza, the refrigerated condiment company best known for its bold, tart, delicious chutneys. Named after the Farsi word for flavor, Maza won the 2023 Expo West Pitch Slam, received the new and noteworthy accolade, and was a 2023 Expo East Nexty finalist. The brand also won the 2021 Kroger Fresh and Local winner. Maza has garnered recognition in publications including the New York Times, Food and Wine, and Food 52, and proudly partners with the Malala Fund, donating 1% of total sales to support girls' education worldwide. Maza is available in select Targets, Kroger, Earth Fare, and many more retailers across the U.S., and I'm so happy to have you. Welcome, ladies.
Thank you for having us. This is so wonderful.
So this is an audio only show, so no one can see this, but I think I'm just going to take a screenshot of this and post this on. It's just so cute. Okay, so I took a screenshot, and Liam, I won't do any more clacking on the laptop. But so I feel like I've heard a lot about you. I've obviously seen the product. It looks beautiful. You're sort of known for like the cornucopia vegetables, like being the only vegetables at Expo West, which is a really nice thing to be known for. Obviously, we have some things in common because we're both in sort of an interesting set place, category buster kind of situation. But the reason I think I'm the most excited to have you on is because I think there's a lot of doom and gloom going on in our industry. And I think a lot of people are like, oh, the money, the consumer, which I also feel a lot of the time. But I don't know, something about your story and the way that you are using the CPG community to create opportunities and using these different programs and doing the work for the pitch slams. Like, this is almost like the way that this industry works best. And it's the way that it brings the best things to the consumer from this industry. So I feel like you're sort of this beacon. No pressure.
Oh,
of like goodness and hope.
Thank you.
It's great. So now you have to tell everybody how you do it because that's not the end of the podcast. That's just the beginning.
Just the beginning.
But so why don't you let's start with telling me a little bit, I guess, maybe Yasemin, you start. How do you guys divide the work between the two of you so that I know exactly who to ask the questions? Yeah.
I always say I get stuck doing all the boring paperwork and pushing paper ops and business things, and she gets to do all of the razzle dazzle.
Not true.
or I say she's the polish.
Oh, yeah. In our office, we say the show pony and the workhorse.
There you go.
We both work pretty damn hard.
We do.
Right.
We hustle.
We have different brains, though. I come
Yeah.
from like design, creative, advertising world, and she comes from the business side.
Yeah.
So our brains together is very
A
good
perfect
together.
brain.
Sister magic.
Yeah.
Sister magic is what we call it. Yeah.
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 I mean, they do say, anytime it's either a really good thing to have a co-founder or it can be just a business killer. And usually what seems to be the deciding factor is if you have an overlap of skills, it's probably not great. But if you have really, really complementary oppositional skills in a way, and you can delegate and trust the other person, which of course you can since you're sisters, that's like, again, a really golden formula. So it's safe to say, Yasemin, you're doing the ops and logistics, and Sheila, you're doing more on the marketing and sales side. Okay. Got it. Okay. So Kroger Fresh and Local. Kroger is a bit of an anomaly to a lot of people. It's like got the scale of Target, but it doesn't quite have the, I don't know, that sort of like bent for innovation and new stuff. And it has so many different types of stores and I think so many different layers of consumers. So tell me a little bit about how you got into that, what that program was like, what winning that meant, and, how the whole story.
So our journey, we went from our local farmers market to Kroger, and we won a Kroger competition, right? Like it was a Range Me application that I think was sent to me 3 times. And I was like, no, I'm not going to do it. And then the 4th time I was like, okay. And it took it was a 15-minute application, and we got to the first round of interviews, and I think there was like 5 rounds of interviews and tons of samples sent all over. And then they invited us to pitch in Cincinnati at their headquarters. So I think it was 15 brands, and they were going to pick 5. It was in the middle of like a spiked transmission during the pandemic of COVID, right? I was
naturally
30.
Right?
Yes. I was 32 weeks pregnant, and I was like,
I think this was your first trip.
This was my first, yep.
During COVID.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I was like, am I doing this? Like, I got it. This is my shot, And of course I took my mom along. Mom had to be there. Yeah. And we got there, and it was like full production. It was like Shark Tank, like hair and makeup.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
Really? Light, studio light. Yes. I wasn't there. This is second hand.
My gosh.
And it's funny, like we pitched, I think it was a 3-minute pitch, and we pitched like innovation arms of Kroger. Like it was the CEO of 8451, the CEO of Pearl Rock, the CEO of Murray's Cheese, the CEO of Home Chef, and Fresh, the VP of Fresh. So this was all led by Kroger's mission to bring more fresh products to their stores and looking for innovation across the country. And they had this focus on local. So the 5 winners were all in a Kroger division. So we won our Midwest division. We're based in Minnesota. I had never walked into a Kroger ever in my life.
Right. Yeah.
We launched in a set of stores in Detroit. So small footprints to big footprints, just as like a test. And then moved into, I think it was like 20 or 25, like about half of the Mariano's in Chicago, mostly like the city stores there.
That's a good one.
And then recently expanded into the Texas market. So for us, like, this was our opportunity to move from our like farmers market stand to how does it feel to be in a retailer, you know?
So you didn't have anything in between. There was no like small specialty or natural channel. Did you go straight from farmers market to Kroger? Because that's great.
We did like the Wedge Co-op here
Local
in the
co-ops.
Twin Cities. There's like a handful of co-ops here that we did, but we didn't have any regional placement anywhere.
Right.
It was
so that's like really getting thrown into the water or the fire or one of the elements getting thrown into the chutney. And in terms of like, so there are a couple questions, right? Because some brands aren't ready for that. Well, whether or not they have the right supply chain. I mean, am I allowed to ask you, do you guys HPP it, or is it like, how is that? Yes. So you had already been figuring that out before, or?
We moved to a co-manufacturer that could handle additional scale. Right.
Right.
But in our like product food safe, like our product life cycle of like wanting to extend shelf life and food quality, we just started HPPing recently, like in January of 2024.
Right.
So at that time, shorter shelf life.
It had a shorter shelf life. Right. Understood. Yep. Okay. Yeah, because I think that, I think early on we had like 60 days at the beginning or something like that. And someone was like, you need at least 90 or 120 or whatever it was. And I would have been nervous if I didn't know that. You just don't even know about how long it takes can take a month to get across the country. I mean, no one would think that. It's just crazy. So was there just like a very sharp learning curve on the ops? And
Kroger was our master class.
Yeah, I think at that time our shelf life was 120 and we were giving them 90 guaranteed. So I think it also pushed us to like do deeper promos or like make sure that we are being really considerate on getting it off the shelf. We're really like focused on making sure that it got to the customer and in someone's basket by then. The really amazing thing about the program for us was being merchandised in the Murray's cheese section.
Yeah, that's great. That's a good. We'll talk about placement in a minute. Because yes, keep going.
Yeah,
that's cool.
But that was just an amazing opportunity for us to get to our customer and our consumer a little bit quicker than if we were just somewhere else in the store.
Yeah.
We also had amazing opportunities to, like at launch, go in and speak to all of the cheesemongers in the division and talk about different cheese pairings and how they could talk to their customer about use cases and all of this. And that was really great for us because we were exploring that. We did not grow up eating chutney on charcuterie boards, right? Like,
yeah, that wasn't your original. It is funny though how okay, this makes me want to ask so many questions, but I'm going to let you finish. So you had to figure out supply chain, but that seemed like that wasn't that crazy. That seemed manageable.
Our like big supply chain, like our force out, like was in 2020, right? It was like we were self-producing in 2020, and then all of the rules changed on how many people you could have in the space. And then at that time, we were like, okay, it would cost this much money to rent this entire facility for me, mom, sis, dad, brother to come in and make our product. So
we had to make some decisions.
Yeah.
Right. Wow.
So we were kind of like already on that journey, if that makes sense.
Got it. Yes. No, that totally makes sense. Yeah. I mean, because part of the thing is it's like, be careful what you wish for, you know? Now I think I'm sort of like, I almost feel like I hope I'm not like karmically messing myself up, because I'm like, even if whatever came, I don't know that we would be able to fulfill that. And then I'm like, no. Don't put that into the universe. If it comes, you'll fulfill it, you know, but I think for a lot of emerging brands, there are a lot of steps in between, and it can be really overwhelming, and you don't want to let anyone down, and you don't want to mess it up. And that's on the getting it there side. And then I guess my second question is, you kind of touched on it, but I don't know. I posted something the other day, and someone wrote, you know, the easy part is getting it on the shelf. The hard part is like getting it off. And I was like, yes, thank you. Thank you, a wise one. Like, I know, you know, but I was like, thank you. I'll try, you know. But so how did I haven't met a founder who isn't sort of surprised at how hard it actually is to sell, you know, 4 units per SKU per store per week. Like, you would think that it's 4, you know, it's not 100, but yet sometimes it takes a minute. So how did you get up to speed, and what was the big learning, I guess, for you there?
I mean, it was our first time selling something not like in our own backyard, right? Like we weren't there
telling the story and telling people it's our mom's recipes and being the face of the brand.
Yeah.
So a lot of it was packaging, like trying to make it, you know,
enticing.
Yes.
Something that people would grab off the shelf, be interested in, something different.
Yeah.
But then also all of the levers that you can pull for like driving trial, right? Like tasting it is the biggest. Like once someone has a sample of our mom's chutney, they like understand, they like get it, right? So it was a lot of working with the demo teams at Kroger and working with the cheesemongers to make sure that they were demoing it every month, or to make sure that we were on the schedule every week and introduce ourselves to, like, I think I drove to every single Mariano's in Chicago that first month and said, hey, this is our family's product, and introduce myself to every person that worked in the cheese section. Yeah. To like show that we were real people.
Yeah. The face behind the brand. Yeah.
Yeah. No, amazing. Okay. We're going to take a little break, and then we're going to come back and talk about placement. You know, one of the 4 Ps. We'll be right back.
Whether you're a chef or just love going to restaurants, you know the best ingredients are everything, especially when it comes to beef. In Northern Australia, there's a different approach to raising high-quality beef. Westholme, based in Queensland and Northern Territory, is working with the land to create nature-led Australian Wagyu. Westholme stewards 16 million acres of rangeland, guided by their natural ecosystems. They're led by a belief that if they balance the needs of their cattle with the needs of the environment, both can thrive. Westholme's team of rangelands experts and nature managers use a variety of tools to monitor and respond to the welfare of the environment, like satellites that address grass health and on-the-ground research. Cattle are happier when they have the freedom to forage and explore, so Westholme ensures that they can roam wild, foraging at will for the first 2 to 3 years of their lives. Their cows graze on native grasses like Mitchell grass, which is only found in Australia, along with dozens of other plants, herbs, and seasonal legumes. The result is a high-quality Wagyu beef that reflects the terroir of Northern Australia and a flavor suited to complement any cuisine. Westholme believes that when nature leads, flavor follows. Learn more at westholme.com.
I'm back with Yasamin and Sheila Sajadi, founders of Maza. Okay, so before the break, we were talking about the Kroger Fresh and Local Supplier Program. You mentioned that the placement was in the Murray's cheese area, which I think is maybe no one else other than you and us and maybe the bitch and sauce folks know what a weird world it is to be a refrigerated condiment, not a relish or a hummus or a salad dressing. And people have heard me for the last 5 years talking about this on this podcast because, you know, in some stores we're in dairy, in some stores we're in produce, in some stores we're in plant-based, in some stores we're in two different parts of the thing. And that can be really hard because you're asking a consumer to go find you. And they're busy and they're exhausted and they're worried about everything. So asking them to take the time and the energy to go hunt you down is a big ask. And we've been told many times that we need to come with conviction to our category reviews and say, this is where we should go. This is who we should be next to. And I would love to have that conviction, but it's hard because, again, the sets are different in every store. So in some sets, it makes sense for us to be next to the sauerkraut. But in other sets, it makes sense for us to be next to the hummus. So I think the cheese placement is kind of interesting for you. Is that where you still are?
That's where we still are in Kroger, yeah.
Right.
In other stores, it's very similar. It's
right.
And we're also emerging, right? It's kind of get in where you fit in a little bit.
Right. Yeah,
right?
for sure. Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, I remember it was funny. I've probably said this on the podcast, but at Expo West this year with the aioli, I'm like, put us in between Primal and Sir Kensington. Like, every single time, and every single person says, where does it go? And I'm like, next to Primal and Sir Kensington. And I can hear myself with the fresh being like, well, there's so many places it could go. It depends on what your set looks like. And it depends on who else you have and and how much refrigerated space and what's near the meat. But what I really like about the deli sort of specialty area is it makes sense for a product that is emerging. But it also makes sense for something that's kind of elevated and sort of special because that shopper is looking for that. They're not looking for like a $2.29 bottle of ranch dressing and then they see you next to it. And in their brain, they're trying to compare and figure out the value of both. So would you take that placement if you could and kind of replicate it across other places? And is that on the possibility list? Yeah.
That's our vision for it, right? Like, I think in the last year, I've learned a lot about that set and a lot about our product and how people use our product and using it for charcuterie boards and celebrations and something special and wanting to share it with friends, right? Like, I think that's all this set and all that, like, you want to go there and just throw a bunch of really cool, unique things in your basket, right?
You're discovering. It's the discovering place.
Yeah. Yeah, because I find that I think that everyone's heard me talk about it. And again, I don't mean to be a downer about it, but it is a unique challenge not to have a home. And whether it's like the founders of Perfect Bar, or I've had the founders of Health Aid on here, like the category busters, it takes time and it takes money. And I feel like that's where we don't have the luxury of the time and the money that maybe brands did 5 years ago. But that's what I love about, I don't know, I feel like that's very cool that Kroger also knew to put you in a place like that, and that it's been working there. Because I think now we should start talking about just building out a set there for products like ours.
Yeah.
Maybe
Let's
we
do
all
it.
come together and then we just say, this is where we should go.
Yeah.
Okay, done. Expo West, Pitch Slam. This is another thing that you won. You guys are just like, you just win all these things. Tell me about that. So you won the Pitch Slam in 2023, and that meant that this year you got a free booth. So
Yes.
this is very good and very hopeful for people. And I'm going to tag Carlotta and the whole Expo West crew when I publish this, because I think that a lot of emerging brands just assume they will not be able to do it. And they're not sure that it's necessarily going to be worth the spend if they do. So I want to hear about the Pitch Slam, and then I want to hear about your experience at Expo.
So actually how we got to Expo in 2023 was through the Included Access program. And this was, it's a group of BIPOC CPG CEOs, different service providers in the space that wanted to kind of come together and see more people that look like them at the trade shows, right?
Yeah.
They partnered with New Hope. They have a cohort at the Fancy Food. So they partnered with the Specialty Food Association, and they give you a free booth, free passes, a hotel room. Like, they take away the financial barrier to actually get there.
Yeah.
So that's how we kind of got there in 2023. And
did you have any idea what to expect? Like, had you been to?
I walked the show the year before.
Okay.
And that was through like our Minnesota food and ag department. Like, they were like, you are in the food industry, here's a free pass for the show, go see.
Amazing.
And I walked away thinking like, holy
hell no,
moly.
we're not doing that.
Yeah, I said, hell
She
no.
FaceTimed me from there, and she was like, this is insane.
Yeah, it's insane.
And I thought, I'm never going to do this. Or if I do this, I have to be 5 years down the road. And then the next year got into this program. And I think as soon as we found out that we were in it, we were like, how do we make the most of this?
Right.
And what should our booth look like? And how do we stand out? And so we applied for the Pitch Slam. We put our name in for a Nexty. We did all of the things.
And question for everyone, because I think what everyone's probably, I don't even know that people know exactly where to even look for the things. So what would be your advice? Like, okay, maybe it's a little late for fancy food, but there are industry things. There are trade associations. There are grants. How do you like, okay, I'm going to sit down. I'm just going to like look for stuff. Like what would you advise to the new founders?
I mean, I think it's just changing. It's rapidly changing, like opportunities like this. Like, I honestly think you just have to be open for these types of opportunities and open to do the 15-minute application or to take a big swing, or, I think we've gotten, stuff like this through LinkedIn or the startup CPG community. Like, I think there's some of those groups that are like much more developed now than they were a year ago or 2 years ago. But I think overall you just have to be open for the opportunity and then just swing as hard as you can. Like it's all about showing up, and that's all her magic.
So tell me about that magic. So when you say take the swing and it's all about showing up, that means like Sheila does the big pitches.
She does the pitches, but I did all of the pitches.
Yeah.
The experience at the booth. Yeah.
So you mean when you get to, then the big swing is like making an absolutely beautiful experience at the show. Yep. Okay.
Yeah. For my pitch slam, for the pitch slam, actually, I wore a
green tinsel jacket,
which was all her vision. I was like, I'm wearing this.
It's 70,000 people or however many thousands of people that attend these shows. And we're like, what do we wear?
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do we stand out in the sea of,
I did a UNFI pitch slam, I don't know, in like 2019. And I'm really not good at them. I'm really uncomfortable in that sort of thing. I like audio.
Oh yes, it's terrifying.
Sitting on a chair. And my team was like, just got to do it. Great. And I'm like, And the guy who went ahead of me, I don't remember what his brand was. And he was a great guy. So I don't mean any shade, but he stood up and he said something and then he ripped off his shirt. He had this like Superman costume and he took his shirt and he like threw it into the audience and he ripped off his pants and he like ran with a cape and I was just sitting there and I'm like, I am fucked. Like there's no way that I'm winning this. And people like standing cheering, standing ovation and then I was like, hi, I have a cooking school and I made this sauce. Thank you. Goodbye. And he won the popular vote. He won the booth. He won the retailers. He won the whole frickin' thing. And he deserved it, but I'll just never forget.
He put on a show.
Oh my God. He did. And I can't. And the fact that I was right after him was like,
yes.
I was just like, this is really bad. Like, please, I'm mortified.
Really, yeah.
Okay, but you wore a green tinsel. You did the thing. You put on the show.
I wore the green jacket. I did a great pitch. I definitely was not like the strongest
ripping off your
company.
Shirt? Yeah.
Yes, it was not. But like at that time though, we were really we were just starting to understand what we were doing, right? Like there were some companies that were like
changing the world.
They're changing the world. They're trailing 5 million. They're the third generation cattle farmer. Like I was like, hey.
And I'm here also. But okay, but dig in a little bit because obviously the product is delicious. Like you said, once you taste it, you're in and okay. But that is a lot of things. There are a lot of delicious products. Like something had to be resonating in the pitch itself and in what you were saying. And I'm curious what you think kind of got because these guys are looking for something that's scalable and that's consumer, they're grocery store people. It's not art, and so they're looking for something that people are going to buy and buy over and over and over again. So what do you think it was that, that you were putting down that they were picking up?
It's a real story. It's not made up in like a factory. It's coming from a real place. And I think people really resonate with that.
Yeah.
And just hearing that it's, our mom's recipe, we grew up eating it on all the things. I think people really enjoy that and want that for themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny. My last interview was with the chief content officer at Pinterest. And it was actually really heartening to hear because he was saying that their biggest sort of growth demographic is Gen Z. And he was like, we were a little surprised by that because we think of them as sort of like rage and engage generation. They want to scroll fast. He's like, but they're also seeking authenticity and connection and seeing themselves in these different rooms or fashion or, there's like we might be at a little bit of a tipping point culturally where we're craving analog and authentic and real and not, and, in real life things again. It seems like maybe we've tipped a little bit out of the everything's tech, everything's super shiny, everything's disconnected, everything's on Zoom. And maybe that's also just reflected in like the food choices that people are starting to make. Maybe they're moving. I mean, I was, when we had our cooking school, we did a lot of events for food companies that were launching, and one after the other was like some meal replacement, pretend food thing that was like created by some guys in Silicon Valley so that they never had to eat because eating took up too much time away from work.
Right.
It feels like what you're doing is you're providing this antidote to that. And maybe that's part of what keeps winning.
I mean, our story is we grew up with our mom's chutney on our dinner table. We grew up with her cooking a meal after work.
Working all day long.
Yeah.
We didn't eat anything out of a can or a jar growing up. So fresh was always, what my mom would cook for us. Even though I wanted that can of Chef Boyardee so bad when I was a kid, I never
that's
got
what
to
the
help.
cool kids were eating. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But like we come from a really big family. In my pitch, I say, I have 55 cousins, like we have a really big family who growing up and still get together every weekend for a meal. And you can't cook for that many people by yourself, right? Like it's always a potluck. Mm-hmm. It's always talking about what we're going to eat. It's talking about like this coming up, like Memorial Day weekend, what are we going to barbecue? Like, are we doing kebabs? Is mom going to do her kick-ass burgers? Like what, what are we,
Yeah.
And I think we grew up in the kitchen like that. And my favorite meals are the meals that take an army of aunties to make, because you all get around the island and you talk
Everyone's doing a little,
Yeah. Everyone has a job, or everyone tastes like the filling of the dumpling and they're like, no, it needs this, it needs that, and everyone gets to put like their special touch on it.
Yeah.
And I think those are the experiences that I think really have shaped who we are and why we want to share our family's recipes and why Mazah is so special to us. But I feel like we give people like a glimpse into the story either through meeting us or through the bottle or tasting the product, and they kind of become part of the family, or they have a spot at our table. Or obviously we've not figured out what that tagline is, but
I have a feeling that you guys are going to figure it out. But so, and then going back to, I think where we maybe over, let me say it this way. When we were selling the sauces at the cooking school, similarly, you were in the cooking school. You knew where they came from. You knew that I was right there. You knew where we were making them. It was like, but the further and further out they went, the less control I had over explaining what it was and what to do with it, and why we chose a clear pouch and what Romesco is and all that stuff. And I think maybe I underestimated just how much education was required for a new product in a new place in the store, in a new, form factor, as they call it. Is that your experience? I mean, I know that the bottle is beautiful and it really does convey, you kind of know there's something about this that makes me feel like I'm a part of something, for sure. Whereas I don't think that ours does that particularly. Mine was just very much about sustainability, which again, I bit off a little too much, I think, at the beginning. But are there other ways that you feel like you've been able to convey that? Has that been challenging? Do you wish that there was some tool that doesn't exist? And how do you help yourself through that, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the challenge, right? Every day. I think we're learning how to do it better and better each day. Like we're learning how you bring people into the story without meeting them face to face, right? Through social, through our website, and to be honest, our Kroger experience, like we're looking for retailers that want to be partners in that, right? Like we want, when retailers see our products or we go to a buyer meeting and they fall in love with the flavors and the story and our journey as sisters co-founding this and bringing mom's recipes, to them. Right. We're also asking them like, yes, but like, how else are you going to help support us in this? Yeah. I think like being women owned and having a free fill be waived or those things, like those are all very nice perks of being an emerging brand in this space. But I think their consumer is hungry for connection and wanting to know more about products that are on the shelf. Are they sustainable? What's in it? Who's the family behind it? Is this authentically from this culture, or was this made up in a lab or someone that's kind of like, and I think my answer isn't going to be like a silver bullet for anyone, but it is truly just continuing to learn and being a partner to your retailer and asking them how we do it together.
Be a partner too. Yeah. And I think that's a really good point, because I don't think that a lot of founders, especially early on, think that we have the right to ask that. Maybe more now because we're all just like strapped for cash in a way that we, maybe weren't. And maybe to some extent the playing field's a little more even because we know that we don't. I think for the first couple of years that I was, having these meetings, I was, and I still am in a lot of ways, up against brands that have a lot more money. And they're not asking for anything. In fact, they're like, and we can do this and we can do that. And so I'm like, well, why would they take me if what am I going to do for them? And I haven't proven myself out. So, but I think going in with that, we really bring something to the table, no pun intended. We know that this is going to resonate. We feel confident about that. And we're asking to partner with you, not just support you, but feel like you're in it with us, I think is a really good way to start that relationship. And the ones that don't know what you're talking about are probably not the best partners at this point. So speaking of partners, let's talk a little bit about what's happening at Whole Foods, just a little, because there's a new line, and that's very exciting.
Yes.
And I want to hear all about it. Yes. Tell me.
You go. We are launching a new line of lentil dips with Whole Foods later this year. And that was kind of our solve for some of the not so great hummus that is on the shelf right now. And lentils was something that we grew up eating. Dal, if you're familiar with what dal is, but that was something that we ate pretty regularly in our house. And we thought it would be a really fun way to kind of create a dip that was made out of this dal lentil, just because it's such a great protein. It's something different. It feels like lentils are having a moment right now too.
I think, they're starting to. Yeah.
But yeah, we are really excited about the different flavors and just extending sort of more than just sauce. Like we know that we're not just a sauce brand, and we were just thinking about ways that we kind of explore something that was like sauce adjacent.
Yes, totally. It's still refrigerated.
Yep.
And it's merchandised in hummus. Like, is that just an easier? It's in hummus.
It will be. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Great. Yeah. I mean, when just thinking about kitchery, I mean, it's a full protein. It's a much more easily digestible protein. And it's still relatively, what's the word? Like neutral. So you can sort of add all these different flavors to it. Love that. And that's launching at Whole Foods.
Yes. Okay. So we have a lemon tahini, which is kind of like a traditional style, but a little zestier, a little fresher tasting.
And is it whipped? Like, is it hummus texture? Yes.
It is. Yep. It's like velvety and smooth.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then we have a roasted red pepper, which was not my favorite of the four, but I can't stop eating it. It's like a little bit sweet, a little bit smoky. Yeah. And then that's like our chocolate and vanilla. And then we have basil jalapeno. And that's like a great balance of like herby, but a little bit of heat with the jalapeno, but not overpowering.
Yeah.
And then the crowd favorite is the turmeric ginger. And it's just this like golden, beautiful, oh my gosh, it's to die. It's so good.
Yeah.
And we thought like if someone can make dessert chocolate hummus, like we can do something better, right? So it was like us in the kitchen with our mom figuring out what the different flavors were going to be, how we wanted to make it. Like lentils have that creamy, buttery texture that a chickpea does, but really easy to work with in the kitchen. Really, we're really excited about the line.
And it's just that is just going to be at Whole Foods for the time being, or is that going other places too?
It will go other places. We're starting at Whole Foods first. Our sauce line will also launch at Whole Foods this year as well.
Amazing.
So
yay.
Yeah.
Is that in the reset in December? Is that the one that I think I don't know.
I think we're getting cut.
Yeah.
I think we're getting cut in a little bit.
The two together.
Yeah.
It does. I mean, we'll look for it. Everyone will look for it. And then also just going back, because I forgot Target also. So as you're, tell me.
You worked at Target.
Tell you what about it.
For people who are listening, Yasmin just pointed very
at me, like
she just like poked Sheila. So what am I supposed to be asking you about Target?
I'm not sure. You should ask.
Oh my God, she worked at Target for 17 years or something.
I don't know how that works,
but I mean, you know a little bit about how it works.
I do.
Okay.
But not us getting into Target was not because I worked at Target.
No. I'm sure it wasn't. That's not how it works. But you do understand the priorities of the company, probably to some
extent. Yes. I mean, just knowing the inner workings of, how things take a long time and how there's 20 people that you have to talk to get one thing done. I mean, yes.
Right.
It's like any other corporate environment. Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely.
So we were actually in the fresh set at Target very early on in our story. And it didn't work. I mean, honestly. There were some stores where it flew and a lot of stores where it didn't. And what we found was that there was just a lot of expired product on the shelf. And then they didn't really seem, it was also deep, deep COVID. So I think there was just like, there wasn't, if you go to a shelf and you see expired product, you don't go through to the back to find one that isn't, you just move on. So I think we were just kind of, and also the set at that time was like, we were next to Honey Mamas and Perfect Bar, and it was just like a little bit hodgepodgey. Yeah. So, but I also feel like, but if anyone is going to figure out how to get the right brands in and get the set kind of functional, it will be Target, because they're really good at a lot of stuff. I mean, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think that they have a bigger focus on specialty food now, right? Like just with brands and product that they're bringing in and what they're offering in the guest experience. That's some Target lingo I picked up.
I like when you talk to and you call the it's like the club member, at Costco.
I was originally pointing at you because you started working in Target when you were 16, and how the journey of coming full
that's
circle.
A different story, but
that's why I was pointing at you. I wasn't going to talk
like
about
sister banter.
I have 3 daughters, but 2 of my daughters are 2 years apart, and I was at dinner with them last night, and they were having some conversation that started with laughing that ended up into a fight that then ended up laughing again, and I was just sitting there like, what the heck is going on? Like, I genuinely, so I'm used to sister banter.
Yes.
But so before I let you go, I guess last bit, there's definitely like a through line with the real story, the authenticity, your mom, being who you are firmly, and kind of not losing yourselves in all of this, and making sure that your retail partners understand that, and also hustling and showing up and squeezing the lemon anywhere you can. But is there anything that I haven't sort of that you would like to tell people, or that you wish someone had told you earlier on in the journey that would have made it a little bit easier for you, or that you feel like maybe people need to hear?
I think for a lot of this journey, we didn't know what we were doing.
Yeah.
And we continue to ask for help, continue to push ourselves to learn more about the industry and more about how you build a brand like this, and how you create a supply chain, and how you, and I think that comes from asking for help, and comes from like aligning yourself with partners that see what you see, right? And truly believe in you, in what you're building and what you're creating. Like, I think we've met a lot of people along the journey that are like, refrigerated, you're dead in the water. How complicated.
I've met them too. I love it, but not refrigerated. I'm like, well, that's what it is. So thank you.
Yeah. We've gotten a lot of no's, like we are fundraising, and people think that we are much bigger than we are. And they're like, why are you not in, 78,000 stores by now? And we're like, with what money could we have supported 78,000,
Right. Well, I think because you have the Kroger and the Target, it's usually that there's like a whole sort of mountain of stores that you climb up to get to those. So it is an unusual journey, but it sounds like you got the best of that journey.
But isn't everyone's, like, no one's as usual.
No, that's so true. And, there maybe was a playbook at some point, but I think what's happened is like every channel, marketing channels, sales channels, natural, conventional, mass, club, everything's blended. I feel like there's just this big like smear of blending over everything. And it's like you said, where you can get in, where you find your consumer, where you can find a road, you take it. Which is what you've done.
You take it and you kind of like, there's a risk in every road, right? But you have to figure out what you're going to learn from it, how you're going to turn it into the next opportunity, how you're going to leverage it. And not every retailer is like Kroger was not on our list as somewhere where we thought we needed to be at that time. Right.
Yeah.
Like, I think I said no 3 times and then was like, okay, let me just throw my hat in the ring.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Amazing. All right. Well, thank you both for coming on the show. This is really fun. I don't usually keep the camera on, but I had so much fun just like looking at the two of you looking at each other that it just made me happy. So I kept it on. And Liam, as always, thank you for engineering the show and for keeping this thing rolling. And Heritage Radio Network, I don't thank you every week, but thank you for making this available. We don't monetize it in any way. It is just of service to the CPG community. And they make that possible. So thank you. And everyone else, I'll be back next week with another episode of In the Sauce. In the Sauce is powered by Simplecast. Thanks for listening to Heritage Radio Network, food radio supported by you. Keep in touch at heritageradionetwork.org/subscribe.
Craft cocktails, from the classics to zero-proof drinks, are all around us. But what if we told you that craft cocktails are actually a relatively recent addition to the culinary scene? My name is Toni Tipton-Martin, and I'm the editor-in-chief of Cook's Country at America's Test Kitchen. I want to introduce you to a podcast mini-series I'm hosting called 100 Proof, The Journey of the American Cocktail. Over 6 episodes, we'll look at how mixed drinks offer us a window into what was happening in America during the dawn of the cocktail. We'll then take you to the present day to contemplate what forces led to our modern cocktail renaissance. And along the way, we'll of course be sharing cocktail recipes with you. Subscribe to Proof from America's Test Kitchen so you won't miss the first episode. It drops on Thursday, May 23rd. Again, that's Proof, Proof, from America's Test Kitchen. Cheers.